to, ladies and gentlemen, the Canadian Cannabis Podcast. Sunday morning, if you caught the first 2 minutes, going to get right into it. Prairie Trichomes, Adam Carritt, Rebecca Sokol, quality assurance personnel, cultivation manager, Adam Carritt, family business either way. Y'all know Adam, Prairie Trichomes helped me kick off 420 2022 with Captain Cannabis, episode 1, the very original, the OG launch of the Canadian Cannabis Podcast. I was able to connect with Adam recently, his colleagues at his grow facility, to learn even a little bit more about the fantastic magic behind the brand. And I can talk forever, so I'm going to turn it over to you real quick right now. I can't wait to hear a little bit more about, let's share a little bit of the story, Adam. And Rebecca, please.
Yeah, thank you. So Adam Carritt here, calling from my office in the facility where we cultivate our cannabis. Obviously, there's no plants in the background, but here we are, Sunday morning. My family started this facility. We built this building and got everything going. And then a little bit later, we were joined by my esteemed associate here, Rebecca Sokol. She's our QAP, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm the QAP here. I'm also a trained horticulturist and considered a legacy participant. I quote unquote, because I'm just a weed lady and I love it. So here I am toting it on the show. I love it.
Yes. So I was fortunate to recently visit Prairie Trichomes grow facility. And for anybody wondering if I was required to travel privately to a disclosed location where a potato sack went over my head, have taken me to the final destination, I wouldn't want it any other way. It's not like that. So a big step up in the, obviously, interviewing players in the industry. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what I mean? Whether from corporate to mom and pop's operations, I try to get it all, man. I try to captivate it all. I try to absorb the education. More importantly, it's about expressing and sharing that education. So the opportunity to visit your the grow facility itself. I've been a consumer of your product. I'm familiar to the area, the startup story. We know through Respect My Region, I've been able to write a little bit about the story. You've shared information, and again, you're joining me for a second time on podcast. And it's just one of those things. I mean, when we take it from being a weed consumer or smoking, you know what I mean, just for the general smoking good weed and looking for, the tour is about finding the best weed in North America. So again, pulling in some of the professional component of that, I speak to it as a bud tender because I've been fortunate to see the success of your product come into a shop and then be gone the next day. So, I mean, some of that magic, I was curious. I wanted to see, and grow methods, grow styles, especially down in that small batch. So I think if anything, we use the time we have to get together on this episode, especially with Rebecca on scene, is to start to look at that, breaking that down. And I know Rebecca does her job quite fine. I mean, between the hairnets, right, and the face masks, loving up.
I'm so sorry again.
That is complete passion for the plant. And I mean, that's what the platform and the show is all about. So I think if we take it from there, I mean, what generally, a small group to come and visit your facility. We also learned while there that the opportunity to tour your facility in a larger group or an educational setting is also an available option for connecting with you. Yeah. If you don't mind to share a little bit about that, and what does it mean to you in your facility? And I know we could explain a little bit about, there's a tremendous amount of work being done. You're a small crew there. So I mean, if you explain a little bit, what does it mean for you to have that opportunity to be able to share some of that with the public, the behind the scenes, the magic, and kind of get that out there and how that reflects your brand. But definitely tell us a little bit about your daily operations and let's get that word out, man.
Sure. So daily operations, we all have, there's also another person, Jamie, who works here, and another person as well as that, Haley, who also works here. Haley focuses on cleaning and helping out with the trimming because there is a never-ending sanitation regime that we have to go through.
And never-ending hand trimming. That's all we do with hand trim. So you get a batch and there's just me and Haley in there for a month.
Yeah.
Trimming away, and it's worth it, but it's a big chunk of work. So we're 4-person crew. It's pretty tight.
Yep. I spend most of my time here at my desk pushing papers, which is not what I expected when we started this venture out, but someone's got to do it, and it is rewarding in its own way. And when I get frustrated with the papers and the regulations and the reporting, I can just go and hang out with some plants at the end of each day, and that makes it all feel better.
And then we have the lovely Farmer Snow constantly working our plants,
Yeah.
constantly. I'm married to him, and I can tell you he's married to the plants, not me. He would live here if I'd let him, but I want some home time away from the facility sometimes.
Yeah. So in a way, like talking about passions, here, like all the four of us, we're huge nerds for what we do, and there's so much learning and knowledge gathering, and we're constantly trying to refine our processes to make it all better quality, but also possible for the four of us to accomplish everything that needs to get done.
While staying true to the craft.
Yeah,
like
of course, quality first.
Quality is what's
Yeah.
the most important. We don't want to use pesticides in here. We don't want to have to irradiate. So cleanliness is the most important thing for us here. So it's clean, all while growing fire genetics. That's the most important part, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and biosecurity as well. So Jordan, you mentioned briefly we give tours of our facility, and we love to talk all day, every day about what we do here, and it is like with biosecurity in mind. Having tours and bringing people through. I think you went through the white Tyvek spacesuit yourself. And we can never. We love to bring people in. We love to talk all about everything we do, but we also have to respect that this is a sealed facility, and we have to be really careful about making sure we don't contaminate our building. When we bring guests in, always there's the risk that they've been doing their own gardening that morning, or they have their own grow in their basement or whatever. And spreading problems from one grow to the next is a major risk for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, speaks to the old monoculture cropping. Like we don't have anything else here to, to buffer, to absorb that risk for us. We just have cannabis in this building, and we have to be super careful about that. But otherwise, we do love to have people around. We had a group of students from ACC come through earlier this year. A fairly large group. We did a big tour with them, and there is so much to talk about. And they were in a horticulture program there, so they had a lot of really good questions, and it was, like for us, it's a great experience. For them, I'm sure it was a wonderful experience, like getting to see in practice everything they're learning. And I don't want to say we're on any kind of a cutting edge for like technology and grow. Like we set this facility up 2 years ago, which means that it's already like there's so much happening so quickly with lights and filtration and nutrients and feeding systems and just plumbing. Like it's hard to stay on that leading edge, but it is still an amazing thing to show off and talk about with people, and where we can also talk about where we'd like to go and what we'd like to see change and how we can make ourselves better in the future. That was a big part of it too. The daily life around here. I mean, we don't give tours every day. We are in the middle of nowhere, so like it's hard for people to get out here, as you can probably attest yourself, Jordan.
Yeah, it's a cool little journey for sure, man.
Yeah,
it's southwestern Manitoba, right? So it's kind of like that, the prairie desert. It's very cool.
Yeah, very much. Yeah.
And I can speak to that too. I mean, once you find the spot, I was curious from the day one, Adam, when we first interviewed at the time meeting, for myself, some of the pre-industry experience and exposure in the ag sector of things. Again, familiarity in the potato industry.
Yeah.
So fascinated right off the story with the flipping of a potato shed too. And I had all of these, like trying to picture it in my mind so again, when I showed up, that's what I thought. I was expecting possibly an arena style shed, right? With your compartments, C-can containers kind of stacked in. And lo and behold, I mean, that's not it. It's like a very state of the art. And again, quality assurance, speaking to the quality assurance measures put in place to actually see how it comes together, right? And then more obviously space to look ahead down the line at what's to come. And you're making it do. So, I mean, there's some numbers that I'm aware of because I was there. So when we're talking small batch, anyone that does catch our episode throughout the day, throughout the rest of the week, that may have also be familiar to some of my social media feed, like to see one C can and the magic inside, but then looking at that at numbers. So not to give anyone the wrong impression, let's look at some of the numbers. So there's 4 of you working, running the facility. And when you say small batch, like what is, let's paint that picture. So you're not using tumblers, right? So you're looking at hand trimmed, non-irradiated, top quality small batch. And roughly the 4 of you would be handling how many plants would we be looking at as small batch?
Well, a single batch, we use shipping containers, obviously. So we do a couple of shipping containers is usually a batch. Each one would hold about 100, maybe sometimes 120. I think at the most we did 138.
38, yeah.
Yeah. But usually we stick to around 100 plants. We have 12 of these rooms in our facility. So I think the most plants we've ever had in this building was around 1,500, but that was 3 separate batches. When we're right full, it's a lot of work to make it.
And they're all different stages, so you're doing all different things, and yeah.
And cleaning and processing last harvest, it's cycles.
There's a lot of work to do, obviously, either way, aside from managing the lot and getting it to the flowering stage, to the end, and then obviously, so taking that time with your plants, really getting to know them either way. Now, you mentioned on some of the biosecurity, and I know that was very interesting. Some of the measures in place, so you're not looking at using chemicals or pesticides, and then that chance of having public come in and potential. So let's look at that. But what some people might not understand, let's say you have a facility walk in and turns out like a lotus or something, or some foreign insect is introduced. Is it the end, like, right? Obviously detrimental to your what am I trying, like your organization? Yeah, like your progress in the chain of command of things. But is it like an immediate, like, whoa, sirens going off, the place shuts down?
Yes, it is immediate sirens going off. So you follow IPM, Integral Pest Management. So if we had a bug, if we found out there was bugs in a room, it goes quarantine first, and we're doing all natural kind of ways to trap them. So we're going to use traps, we're going to use water, we're going to use vacuums, we're going to use beneficial insects. We're going to change our temperatures. We're going to change the environment to try to kill them. If that does not work and our infestation gets worse, they are called. We have a no pesticide rule within this building. If we need to use pesticide, we as a team need to reevaluate what we're doing to change our environment, because that's something we're doing. We are building rooms and space for insects then, and so we're not keeping our cleanliness up high enough. There's things we need to change. And so to us, it's just kill it. There's no need to use pesticide. We want to do as green as possible. While we're out in the middle of nowhere, we're also really close to provincial parks out here, and that's important. So we want to be green. Being green is important.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, next to being again, like, so not quite organic, obviously, to that extent, and some of the regulations in play, without really knowing too much, like as far as going too in depth into the Cannabis Act and the regulations in micro cultivations, for example. But is there a process? Is there something particular to the application process and entering it that helps for yourself as an LP making that decision on going, say, organic or going small batch or going standard? Either way.
I would say not in the application process. Health Canada would like to see. They would like to see good production practices, which is the phrase they use all the time. What that actually means, though, it does include all kinds of like you can use pesticides. It's legal to use pesticides, and of course we have to test every batch whether or not we use them before it reaches the public's hands for their list of 96 pesticides. If there's any kind of a residue at all, they want to know about it. Obviously, we don't have that problem at all because we don't use any. But other Other producers certainly can, if they want to go down that road. For us, it was more about, like, the clincher on that decision not to ever use pesticides was just product quality in the end. And what are we promising our customers? That's our, our biggest thing is like, we want to make this a clean, safe grow. And, even with all the testing, you can still go above and beyond. And that's kind of our attitude to pesticides.
Well, and I do know my fellow legacy peeps, you know what a dirty grow tastes like. I'm sorry. I've smoked weed that tastes like pesticide and powdered mildew, and I don't want to be like, hey, here's a product I helped create. Smoke it. It tastes like pesticide and PM.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
Not my cup of tea.
No.
I appreciate you, Rebecca. Awesome. That's very cool. Such a cool, yeah. It's great. Now, another question that's coming to mind. So I've been hitting up east to west coast LPs from across the board here, man. And a lot of the time, so on the flip side of it, now we're speaking from in Manitoba, and I'm finding a lot of Alberta LPs, for example, phenomenal sales coming to Manitoba. So, whether it's direct delivery, but the collaborations, the partnerships are starting to happen let's say the Prairie, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta. But either way, that's been reflected. So for you as a grower and emphasizing, is it kind of the opposite? And this is more or less, I'm wrapping my mind around some of the regulations, some of that, the distribution headaches that the industry faced through the summer. Obviously, it's going to maintaining. And as we come into the review for the Cannabis Act, hopefully that is something that they definitely have been listening to. While other provinces have obviously, and other LPs or brands have taken the leap to kind of to take alternative measures, navigate regulations, and get themselves positioned into a healthy state where there's less disruption. You know what I mean? Staking that claim and saying this is an opportunity we have, but how do we get our batches out? So as a producer in Manitoba, how is that Canadian scene embracing, or how is it for you to be dealing with the product? Is your product, where are we going to find it? Are we going to find your product in other provinces in Canada? And again, I'm asking just because since being back to Manitoba, I haven't traveled outside of Manitoba. So as the winter comes and spring rolls, we're going to be you help kick off another great thing, was the touring. So facility tours starting here in Manitoba after the post Canadian Cannabis Podcast. Looking into the new year, the follow-up with the number of LPs is moving westward. So I'll be going on a series of facility tours all the way to the West Coast. That's going to be another next really cool thing. So keeping all of that, in mind that way. But share a little bit about what it's been like getting your product to the broader Canadian industry. How has that impacted you here in Manitoba? Or is there a larger, anything that way, collaborations that you've created along the way now, anything organizationally that's helped you strengthen the brand, ready to take the next plunge, man? Please share some of that. Yes.
So as a producer in Manitoba, getting our product out into the wider country, out of the province even. So for us, because we don't do our own processing and packaging here in this building, we as a micro cultivation license holder have the legal right to sell or send our product to other licensed producers like ourselves or larger companies and processors as well. Oh, and I'm forgetting, of course, research license holders. We can send our product to them, but we can't send direct to retail. So for consumers in other provinces in Manitoba, in Canada, and even consumers here in Manitoba, we need to find the right third party to help us get our product into their hands. Now that depends on the third party company, the processor. So in the past, we've worked with Freedom Cannabis out of Alberta. They are, I can't even remember how many provinces and territories they're in, which means that our product gets access to the provincial retail sales boards that sell on to the retailers in each province. Also, we've worked with Delta 9. I know they're in many provinces in Canada. Right now, we're growing our plants for Ghost Drops. They're based out of Ontario, and they themselves have access to multiple provinces in Canada to get their product and by way of that, our product into consumers' hands nationwide, which is really cool. And then it's up to the arrangement that you make with that processor and the person doing the packaging. Do you want your label on it, or do you want their label on it? Do you want to spread your brand more than theirs? Like, are you trying to sell the product up front, or do you want to wait for it to sell and then slowly get some money back, but maybe a little more money than you would get if you just did an upfront sale? It's been a learning experience, I guess we'll say. Everyone has different terms for doing business with them, and different regulations. Sometimes it's frustrating, but for the most part, it's been nice to work with. Like, you end up making contacts with lots and lots of wonderful people. Right now, we also do business with a company in Saskatchewan called Western Cannabis.
Nice.
Shout out to Western. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, they've been great. They've just been absolutely great. That's where our most recent products on the market right now are coming from. They've been really good, and now here in Manitoba, we've made connection with a company called Rogue. They're doing processing and packaging for us now as well, and
awesome.
We're waiting for that first product to get on the market.
And you'll also see us very soon in the Toba rolls for charity.
Yep.
Very
So finding the right people, finding the right company, it comes down to who you know. I once went through the list of licensed processors that Health Canada puts out, and it's like a 40-page document. You just start going down alphabetically and cold calling to see who they are. Like, get yourself in touch with all these people and see if they want to do business with you as a small batch, small cultivator like us. We're kind of small fish to a lot of these companies, but in saying that, they do always get really interested because we focus exclusively on quality, and that's still hard to find. So it's been a journey, to be sure, but had a lot of
cool people along the way, for sure.
We've done it.
And I mean, it speaks for itself. If your reputation is definitely preceding, I mean, maybe your expectations. You drop some big names there. I've connected with some of those players, and if you didn't catch the episode of Freedom Cannabis on the Canadian Cannabis Podcast, they identified Prairie Trichomes, man, as Manitoba's one of their favorite LP to work with here in the province. So I told them then you were going to be on an episode down the line. All that great rigor, you know what I mean? The jargon there, man. Like, again, it's the bud tender, pitching your product, all of that, consuming it, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful situation. I brought that up because, again, as a consumer, aside from the professional industry, I am an avid consumer. I do, you know what I mean? I love cannabis. I enjoy it. I like the variety. I like to explore it. And that's been a big part of it for me that way, just because I've noticed the collaborations. So the third party, it's becoming identified even on the label and packaging. So while the presence hasn't and the appearance hasn't quite changed overly, but I mean, the product, for example, I'm reviewing here today for you, the grape. I mean, beautiful, beautiful information directed right off. So I mean, I'm at a point in the game where I go, obviously, everything I want to know is already there on the package. Leveling it up a little bit and actually comparing over the last 3 days how transeriophyllene, farnesene, and limonene are connecting with my own endocannabinoid system and at multiple levels. So I was home. I had fatherhood over the weekend, so I might not like quite a tea break, but exploring that in different components, including the late night hit, the midnight toke, right? My wake and bake is going to be coming. Not quite a wake and bake. Reviews coming, and I can't wait to share that, right? So I mean, further to that though, all of that information is coming, and now sometimes it's labeled on there, third party grown by, in collaboration with such and such. And I think it speaks to a lot as far as you mentioned, the R&D, the learning curve that the industry has taken shape as a whole. And now that we're going to be moving towards the Cannabis Act review, which is slated for an 18-month process, I believe this week, if we keep our ears to the ground, man, we should find out who's been appointed to the panel.
Yeah, that
might have a significant impact as to what to expect and anticipate as what they're going to actually be looking at. But let's hope that some of that collaborations, ma and pa, small style cooperatives becomes something of a radar leap and a larger one. again, the brand marketing, social media, digital marketing regulations for brands like yourselves. And I get it. I mean, the story, the build-up story for what I created with Flourish Ventures Limited is somewhat different. Wanting to explore being a licensed producer and ending up in digital marketing, learning that digital marketing and branding is a bit of a headache for brands who are in the plunge and building up through the entire environment, building the landscape. So they're trailblazing either way. But lo and behold, things are working out. So I think if that regulation works and we can kind of full circle demonstrate that, the education component through the North American Weed Tour, through other individuals taking that step and establishing themselves through the industry and sharing that information, then I think it should be, as long as we're demonstrating that education, that's going to be a huge part of it. And trying to destigmatize some of that corporate entity, right? So that large scale corporate, who's kind of rolled the industry out, where's everything gone, what hasn't worked, I think is a major important, what more or less looking at projections of what's to come as opposed to what didn't work in the first 3.5 years. I know a lot of turnaround, again, as a bud tender, some of the positions, right? Some of the pay scales and the responsibilities. And then I've heard from fantastic LPs like yourself who have stayed humble through the process and been able to demonstrate a little bit of what it actually took to get in and survive to this point. So I mean, it's totally fascinating that way. So you mentioned that you answered my question before I ramble on too much longer. Your product is Canada-wide. You've made the maneuvers to be involved now in Ontario and Saskatchewan with affiliates that are going to continue to help you build the brand. Now, as we've hit the point from your startup to this, what other changes? So, I mean, you hone in, you dial it in, you've got your lots, you know what I mean? You get your genetics right, everything else seems coming along, the product quality is there. What are we looking at as far as potential, what comes next? If it was looking at, if it's not the biosecurity, if it's not the genetics, but if it's not, you know, something specifically that you do hands-on, what is it? Let's talk about some of the technology. What could be some of the next maneuvers in the game for yourself that way on leveling up even more if possible? And I mean, it can't go too much further, again, because I've hit a number of your strains, right? The quality is absolutely there. The color is brilliant. I can't wait to show some of that shit off, man. Seriously, but yeah.
We have a nursery then, Mr. Fleury.
Yeah. So talking about what comes next, I'll let Rebecca take that one.
Yes, please.
We will be starting a nursery here very soon. I absolutely love to propagate, so that's pretty exciting. And then we're going to be doing some pheno hunting in the house here.
Nice.
So from there, when we have some phenos of our own, we're going to fill our own rooms, kind of keep to our small batch kind of style, just with our own in-house genetics.
Yeah. And still, we still want to continue growing for Ghost Drops, which is its own, I guess you'd call it a product pipeline. Okay. Working with them has been absolutely wonderful, and it's nice to sell. It's nice to make a sale while you're growing, let's say. Even though everything else that we've produced so far and just dumped onto the market for ourselves, like with Western, I use pretty loosely there, but it's working. That pipeline is quite nice as well, and it's all our own brand, and you know, we really stand behind those products. But just as much, we also want to keep our connection with Ghost Drops and keep producing for them and with them and working with them. Absolutely. For the foreseeable future. Just kind of split our facility in half. Yeah. Keep
work with them and work with it by ourselves, and
Yeah.
just keep doing what we're doing here because it seems to be working.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, for sure.
And then, so what comes next beyond that? If we look further into the future, we're still in the process of getting our processing license, like filling out the application and getting it submitted. Ideally, at some future time, we would like to be able to package our own products here in this building and send them straight to our retail stores. Then, like I was telling you when you were here, if my store manager calls me in a blizzard and says, I'm running out of flour and the trucks can't get here to deliver more, I can take it to him myself because there's so much flour in this building. At that point, we've closed the loop basically, and we're getting
get them tractors going and we deliver our
yeah,
weed.
whatever it takes. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think who speak more to that. So I mean, how does it work? Have you been as an LP looking ahead at some of that with the Cannabis Act review coming up? Is there a direct line of communication coming from Health Canada to LPs right now in anticipation and preparation for that? Like anything in questionnaire or like, hey, this is coming up. How does that work? I mean, I'm not an LP, so that I've got to dig that out of Health Canada, which I will. But if you're privy to that, if there's something you can explain, how does that work? What can we expect that way?
So Health Canada, like as my name is on the license, obviously, and they send out regular email updates about all kinds of things. I think a few months ago we got one about media marketing and promotion and what the rules sort of indicate and how we're supposed to work with that as an LP. Most recently for the review, they have sent out like an online questionnaire that we're meant to fill out with our opinions. And I've noticed that they're really good about unlimited length text boxes on their questionnaires.
Oh, yeah.
You really do get a chance to speak your mind and say what you want. Like that part has been really good. Whether or not during the review process, anyone's actually going to go through and read every single paragraph that every single LP has submitted in these questionnaires, I don't know, but hopefully, like that's the dream. Yeah. They're listening and they do want our feedback. They've made it pretty clear, like the day they announced that they were going into this review process, I got that email straight away. Like there was no delay. So I think they want to hear from us. I think they are listening. We'll see.
Yeah, I hope. Likewise, man. Optimistic for sure. It's been a long time. I mean, there's been a lot of R&D gone into it. I think the time frame is absolutely from speaking with LPs and retail owners as far as Health Canada inspection goes, including LGC. So as a bud tender, I've been able to connect with some of the LGC, experience some of the inspection process myself that way. Yeah. And then looking at that communication cycle, like you said, everyone seems to be on board for the full circle effect of what can we universalize without recreating the wheel. And obviously Prairie Trichomes is nailing that down, man, big time. Another portion of it, so the cannabis culture, and I mean, legacy to legal, there's no hesitation on that, pulling in as much experience as possible, but emphasizing cannabis culture. So if you're familiar this summer, I've been able to hit a number of music events through the 2022 Summer Music Festival. And it was beyond that. So I could attend as a patron, obviously, but doing what I do in behind of that was a lot of reach out. So a lot of reach out to event coordinators, event organizers saying, hey, this is a viable solution for you to have if you're considering cannabis presence in the future or this at now. I can expose some of your event status into a pro-cannabis atmosphere through Respect My Region or through Decolonize Cannabis and pitching up the freelance journaling. So pulling in that culture, inclusive to obviously food and music. So if you followed or subscribed, you see I do food reviews every now and then now as well, just to kind of keep that component, generally indicating while I've been out on a day tour, hitting up retail shops, so kind of trying to pull it in. But what I'm getting at is it's such a great fit. So I've been able to even connect with the Burton Cummings leader, True North Sports and Entertainment, who are welcoming to the idea to have someone like myself on scene and share that information through my feeds, to write about those events and can continue building that up. Now going east to west across the Canadian Cannabis Podcast in the West Coast, events like Shambhala, where Joey was able to make it up from Los Angeles to start exploring the scene up here, as opposed to having me kind of reaching out constantly. And again, following up at Hall of Flowers in Toronto. So if as far as projections and anticipations go, if you go back on the entire series, what we've been putting out there, maybe we're just about to turn it up. So, I mean, next summer, my touring is going to be straight across music festivals, facility sites, processing sites, you name it, pretty much nonstop. And
Jordan, you need to be checking out some of the cannabis cups. Mom Cup was just recently. Shout out to the winners of Mom Cup, by the way. You guys.
Oh yeah, thank you.
And like that's a big part of our culture too. Cannabis culture, that's a big thing. We all get together and compete and share things. I miss the Cubs.
For
I
sure.
work now.
I'm glad you brought it up, Rebecca, because last night when I was searching on doing my general searches, I think Manitoba's last hemp and cannabis conference was in 2018. So the year of legalization.
That's the legal market. As
Yeah.
someone coming from the gray, we've been doing it longer than 2018, like Unity. There's all sorts of stuff. We just know how to hide. I see my peeps. I know you're here.
You and I are going to connect after, and we're going to talk.
You have to come partying with me one night, George. I'll show you around.
What I wanted to get up there, though, is there any chance, because it's not uncommon in some of the coastal areas where the industry has kind of moved forward into that cultural. But what are the chances you might look at hosting a music event as part of your whole operation? It's you know what I mean. There are some brands I've connected with. You have and that's generally where they're happening. Music events on cannabis space, somewhat or another. You know what I mean? And looking at.
I actually thought about having a cannabis camp out at my house this last summer. Inviting some of my gray market homies and some of the new people just to come out and
for sure
to do, because COVID kind of put a wrench in all that for a lot of us.
Yeah, it did, definitely.
You know, I have contacts from the East Coast to the West Coast in cannabis, and I haven't seen them since before COVID. And with this sort of job, you can't travel like you normally can because you're farming every single day.
Right.
So I was like, we need to bring the party to us.
Yeah.
And just didn't do it this year, but I want to so bad. We live in a beautiful spot. There's lakes and yeah.
I'm asking because I've experienced some of it. I've seen it. So and not just LPs. I've been to some great events through the season where the idea is they would like to have cannabis inclusive to those environments, anticipating again and connecting on regulation changes. So I mean, it's just that full circle effect. What can we expect? Obviously, it's going to be happening at some point. Manitoba's LGC has lightened up a little bit through the summer as far as having that presence included. I am working right now with the Winnipeg 19 Plus Adult Expo coming to Winnipeg October 28th and 29th. I'll have a booth as well. I will be guest speaking in the day, sharing cannabis education and looking at, for Manitoba's first of a kind event like this, a breakthrough of what we can build up and expect moving forward. Let's look at possibly collaborating and bringing some of these events to a larger scale, possibly like Comic-Con as well that same weekend, plugging it out. Captain Cannabis likely joining from Vancouver. I was emailing him last night, lining it up. So if he's around for that, that's a great opportunity that entire weekend, Halloween weekend. Yeah, totally pumped for that. There's a Halloween social. I know I mentioned to you, Adam, if you hadn't, it's their targeting these retailers, vendors. So, I mean, if there's an opportunity that way. And again, yeah, obviously moving towards the research license. So things are going to definitely kick up. And it's been quite a bit of an interesting couple of days since I did tour your facility because I have questions, man. And one, I was fascinated to be around plants again, holding back tears through my smiles, actually.
Yeah.
And remembering things, like, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm looking at nodes that are size of grapes there, man, and my mouth was watering. I'm like, I want to eat this right now. But
It's only early.
yeah, you know, you get me that way. Like it's been something else either way, through and through, looking at where it's all going to go from here on in. And I guess if there's more particular to like with the research portion of what I was mentioning in that way, it's going to be a very cool opportunity, something I wasn't familiar to, looking at the licensing process and the applications with the CTLS even 2 years ago. The research seemed like kind of the furthest thing away. And yeah, I mean, now that it's kind of come around, it's going to allow me a different avenue working with Health Canada to really get education out. We're going to be rolling out, specifically starting with cannabis consumption lounges and safe use spaces, that type of way. So working hands-on with a lot of Manitoba retailers and LPs. And then again, you mentioned it, by having the involvement with the research license, we can look at actually sharing product and really kind of getting everybody kind of on board, which realistically could lend to more collaborations and kind of breaking that down to more locally working together that way and establishing it all. So yeah, obviously, man, I like to spit it out. I like to ramble. You know the questions. I could ask them all day. I see something, I want to know more.
Yeah.
You know, I smoke a little bit, I want to smoke more.
Yeah. Sunday.
Did you have any, how about yourself, just to turn it over? Do you have any questions at all as far as what things are going? That's what I was going to say, because with the terms of the eating, another funny thing that's worked out. So I left your facility. You were I had questions about natural interest in, and I brought up in the US, hemp feed, for example, for cattle feed, chicken feed, looking at leftover, what's deemed leftover carcass, or however the term is.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, I come back to Minnedosa. I'm getting my stuff ready and kind of looking at a recap, getting ready to dial in on the grape. And I end up taking a contract for 3 weeks, man. So I'm heading out to, at this point, an undisclosed facility north of Winnipeg. I've taken the gig for 21, so 3 straight weeks. And I'm going to have a bit of an exposure into what happens with all of the leftover stuff. And I know you mentioned like potatoes. I was warned it's going to stink. But I mean, it's a new opportunity. It's another avenue in the industry where I'm going to have some greater exposure. I'm going to get dirty. I'm going to get my hands in there and see that.
Well, if you ever want to come feed the cattle and the goats some waste, you're more than welcome. Go into that.
Yeah. Like, have you ever seen Son-in-Law? Should I wear coveralls and rubber boots?
You know what? I wear a nice fancy dress and I'm in the barn sometimes. You can wear whatever you want. They're little spoiled animals.
Anything goes out here, man.
So I am looking forward to that. It's crazy, man. And I can only imagine some days when I look and I'm like, what the fuck did I get myself into now? You know, but where's that?
Everything in this industry.
It doesn't compare to looking at the operation you're managing with a small crew and keeping it together, right? I mean, getting that fire product out there, people are responding to it. And I mean that as a consumer as well as a bud tender. It's obvious. I mean, when it's there, it's there. And I appreciate you as well as for Manitoba taking it to that step, man. I shared a post the other day when everything kicked off at a time when I think Ontario was hitting 300 LPs, Manitoba was sitting at 8 or 9. You were one of them. I mean, so we're getting there. It's taken a lot of trailblazing here in the middle of it all, but it's happening, man. It's been worth it. And again, like I can't appreciate your time more than enough. I say that a lot. It takes a lot to come on. I know people are still getting nervous too, because again, what do we say? But it's education. And if we don't share this information, nothing isn't going to change. Like, you know what I mean? It's not going to change. So
yeah, that's it. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
With that, Adam, we definitely hit our 42-minute mark, man. That's a beautiful situation. I owed it to you. Again, you helped me kick off the Canadian Cannabis Podcast. We did it right on 420. A lot has changed. I know we haven't capped on it all.
Yeah.
You're still going, man. And you got lots out. Like you said, you know that. So, yeah. It meant a lot to me to have me out this week. It means a lot to meet with me here today. I look forward to the work that I'm going to be doing for the rest of the day on Grape by Prairie Trichomes. Stay tuned for that review.
I'm going to do some work on it too later when I get home.
Right.
Sorry.
Work on it. So fun, a good blankie too.
I hope I've opened the dialogue up enough to get the message out that you were hoping to. I know and appreciate Rebecca, quality assurance personnel, to join us. It means a lot to demonstrate some of that as well. I don't think many people really probably have any clue on the biosecurity process and what it means to have someone at your education status in the facility, being able to manage that type of situation.
I do have something to say. If you're going with small batch and you have questions about how we produce, reach out to us. I see that all the time online, and I'm like, email the people. I would love, if you want to know what we're doing here, I will tell you and I will invite you out. I have tons of stores who message me asking me questions. I tell them what's up and I invite them out to come actually see, because it's important to see.
Yeah. So educate, spread the word. Like, reach out to the cultivators. We're nerds. We love to talk about it. Like,
Excellent. Oh, you're plugged in the description. People know where to find you at Prairie Trichomes. You're right here on our handle, as well, again, in the video description. If you need to connect with Adam and Rebecca, Prairie Trichomes, do not hesitate. Hit them up direct. And if you can, arrange a facility tour. It is definitely worth the drive to do that. I think I've kind of nailed it up, man. I'd like to leave it with you. If there's any shout outs, I will give my shout outs. Obviously, I'm here in Manitoba. I'm going to be wrapped up for 3 weeks. Ladies and gentlemen, anyone that does follow me catching this after, expect a little bit of a slowdown for 21 days for sure while I'm out grinding. I'll be active on my evenings. I'll be maintaining the Canadian Cannabis Podcast on the Sundays. I am kicking up a cannabis or sort of bud tender education series. I launched it off a little bit. On the background of that, if you're a bud tender and you know I've talked to you, so we'll be kicking that up and we'll be doing a lot of interviews with bud tenders. I'd be happy to have someone from your store on for that locally and blowing it up a little bit more that way. So no further ado, man, my love goes out to you guys today for sure. Prairie Trichomes. As usual, respect my region, Pot Life Cannabis and Vape Shop, Indigenous Bloom, Flourish Ventures Limited, all my family and friends, you know what I mean, in the beautiful province of Manitoba right here in Canada. I'll turn it over to you, Adam and Rebecca. Please leave us with some kind words of encouragement. And yeah, man.
Okay, well, yeah, thanks for taking the time to interview us. It's wonderful to be back on the podcast. Thank you, Rebecca, for joining me as well, helping me with this.
Thank you, customers.
yeah.
Thank you, the legacy people who've been behind us and cheering us on.
Yeah.
I appreciate every one of my friends from like old school who sit there and every time I share my legal weed, cheer for me.
Yeah.
You guys make me feel really good, and I really appreciate you guys cheering me on this whole time.
Yeah.
Because look, I'm on the Prairie Podcast.
Yeah, and thank you, Lonnie and Rob, and the team at retail. Also, they're our customer face, and they're doing a wonderful job. We plow them with information from the facility. So if you happen to be in one of our stores, stop by and have a long-winded chat with anyone who works with us because they love to talk about it as well.
All right, man. And where are we going to find your stores, Adam? I know Neepawa, it's a beautiful spot. Where else can we hit up the Prairie Trichome, man?
Yeah, so of course we've got Neepawa and we've got Lonnie up in Gimli running the store there. And just in case you're wondering, we are moving our Neepawa store across the street sometime in the next couple of months. So just keep an eye out for that.
I'll be sure to let everyone know where that location is as soon as you set up shop.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been another episode of the Canadian Cannabis Podcast 2022 North American Weed Tour, brought to you by Respect My Region. And in this episode, Flourish Ventures Limited. Until next time, keep lit and grow some.